If I asked all of you to bring up a forgotten anime character for me, I bet I'd get a very wide range of responses. You've got people who just started watching bringing up unpopular characters from Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer. You've got people who yearn for the glory of the mid-2000s throwing out names like Kamina and Haruhi and don't worry, legends never die. And then there's the guy with 45 days worth of anime watched on Mal talking about some show that probably doesn't even exist. But I'm going to raise you all by taking things a step further. How about a character who was never even given the chance to appear in a show? Someone so infamously forgotten that even his creators poke fun at how much neglect he's received over the years.
最初からずっといたんだけど、やっぱり僕印象薄いのかな。
This is Kappei Hiiragi from Clannad. And for all you anime onlys out there, you might be looking at this saying, oh, I know Clannad, but what the hell is this thing on my screen right now? You just drew that and threw it up there, didn't you? Well, no, he's from the visual novel, and he is in fact the only major Clannad character who was cut when Kyoto Animation made their adaptation. But if you've been keeping up with this series like all the coolest people in the world do, you would already know that. So what's this guy's deal? And why was he the only one from this franchise left by the wayside? More importantly, could leaving him buried in the past actually be a good thing? Well, let's go through his route and see if we can hey, dude, I'm still fucking talking. Why are you rolling the Alright, I get it. Intros are boring. Speaking of which, if you choose to play this route, I hope you're comfortable with wasting away like 7 days, because you can't actually meet Kappei until the 21st. I mean, granted, you have to talk to Yusuke at some point because he's important for later, but other than that, you've got nothing but fast forwarding to do. And even when the day finally comes, I wouldn't blame you for missing him. See, when Kyou tries to murder Tomoya by ramming him with her bike like the charming little sweetheart that she is, you have to specifically choose to dodge to the right in order for her to miss you and slam into Kappei. Again, you should never feel bad for wanting to use a guide to beat this game. Not like you'd have time to anyways. As the saying goes, you can feel sorry for yourself only after you've taken care of the body. I need to go to bed. Good news though, he's alive. Bad news though, he's late for a job interview and runs off before we get to know too much about him. Well, maybe the resume he accidentally left behind could shed some light on him. Most of it is blank, you know, as it should be. Why answer more than you have to? His favorite subject is lunch. I think it's cool that he's showing his potential employer how much he appreciates a good meal. Motivation, want money. Great answer, gotta respect the honesty on that one. Interests, not something I can tell people. Nice. Let the interviewer envision all the wonderful things you may or may not do in your spare time rather than just telling them. Current health. I'll sue if this is sexual harassment. Yeah, I mean, you can never be too careful these days. And finally, strong points. I think guys should aim to be men. You know, sometimes the best answer to a question is something that has nothing to do with it at all. So, this guy is an idiot? Something that only becomes more apparent when Tomoya meets him again to return his masterpiece to him. But you know, I can't pretend like it's not pretty endearing at first. You've got the resume itself, the funny moments where Tomoya capitalizes perfectly on how forgetful Kappei is, and the ridiculous bit where he tries to repay Tomoya for his kindness by buying him a soda. He sprints down to the machine but ends up coming back like 8 times to ask some trivial question about his preferences or get change because he doesn't have any. Tomoya begins to think that he's bullying him and, well, when you eventually find out what this route is about, you realize that what he did was not bullying, it was torture. And I kinda maybe sort of think that Kappei deserves it. Look, I don't remember when it was, but I'm pretty sure that I mentioned I'd be bringing up the issues I have with Clannad at some point. I've been sprinkling some criticisms in here and there, but I feel like I haven't been leaning into that as much as I probably should be. So it's a good thing we're talking about this route today. You wanna know the answer to the title and thumbnail of the video? Yes, I think Kappei being left behind was 100% for the best. Poof, retention gone. But if you wanna stick around and see me lose my marbles, go right ahead. I'm making a spirit bomb with the negative energy from the Clannad movie Chikai and School Days videos to rip this man in half. And, it looks like you're in the splash zone. God dang it. Did I mention that you can financially support me for writing like this? Alright, first things first. I find that Kappei stops being endearing after you've interacted with him for like 20 minutes. His clueless yet earnest behavior quickly devolves into whiny, self-centered entitlement. He has this running gag where he gets upset with the people who interview him for super small stuff, like them requiring him to have a driver's license for a pizza delivery job or a fast food joint not offering him tea during the interview. There's this one scene that always irritated me where Sunohara accidentally shakes a soda and gets it to explode in Kappei's face, and he gets super mad and says he's going to beat him up the next time he sees him, failing to remember that he literally just did the same thing to Tomoya not too long ago. He's also really obsessed with manliness, which, get it? It's funny because he looks and sounds like a girl. There are some good bits that come out of this whole thing, but if anything, it's really just indicative of this game's age, which is why it brings me great displeasure to say that Sunohara's entire existence in this route is built upon this one joke. He sees Kappei and falls in love with him, sinking super far into delusion as the route goes on, and it's just kind of sad to watch at points. Like, oh my god, no you don't, dude, wake up! Of course he gets no sympathy or help from anyone, and you're just supposed to laugh at it. Most of the time I can do that, because usually Sunohara deserves whatever he gets, since the people he imposes himself on don't deserve his harassment. But Kappei is so unlikable that seeing Sunohara agonize over him is really annoying, if that makes any sense. Like, Tomoyo kicking Sunohara because he attacked her first and made a bunch of baseless accusations, or Kyou attacking Sunohara because he asked his wife to marry him. Totally fine, you dropped this, king. But Mr. Hypocrite douchebag over here hating this guy because he made the same mistake he did? Yeah, no thanks. Also, another point, this route forces you to skip out on playing laser tag. I don't even need to explain myself on that one. Here's something that does deserve our full attention though. The Fujibayashi twins play a big role in this route, specifically Ryo, but let's talk about Kyou first. As usual, she's a part of a lot of this route's highlights. We get more great teasers for her route, and there's some funny stuff like when Tomoya has to desperately try to stop Kappei from telling her he plans to cook Botan. I wish I could give you more examples, but she doesn't stick around for very long. Kappei and Ryo start dating in a love at first sight kind of way, to the astonishment of both Tomoya and Kyou. She does some funny overprotective stuff and worries about whether or not this is going to work out, and then the writers start setting the stage for something wonderful. Kyou tells Tomoya that she feels like Ryo is moving ahead in life without her, so Tomoya says, why don't you go get a boyfriend? Personally, I think this would have been a great opportunity for Kyou to finally gain the resolve to ask him out since Ryo is gone and she's out of excuses. But why do this? Well, for one, it'd give us more of these two while they're dating, something the visual novel has a criminally small quantity of. And when things take a turn for the worse, instead of Tomoya and Ryo being the ones to deal with it themselves, you now have this third pillar that has proven time and time again to be exceptional in a group setting. Just thinking about how they would all comfort, encourage, and think through a big problem together, taking into account their vastly different relationships with each other, sounds like a characterization wet dream. But what actually happens is she says, nah, I'm not going to be in the mood for that for a while, and then leaves. This is the last time she appears in this route. Keep in mind that while the exact time frame is kept in the dark, this route has like 4 time skips and one of them is 5 years long, so at minimum we're looking at the better part of a decade. Say what you want about my proposal. It's too unrealistic because Kyou has notoriously cold feet, and Tomoya has like a 50-50 chance of saying yes to her even if she does ask. However, I think that makes a lot more sense than her just disappearing from Tomoya's life because she's sad that Ryo is dating someone. At the very least, she could have come back later, but no, she's just gone for years. It screams, I need to find a way to get rid of this character right the hell now to me, and as much of a coward as Kyou is, I don't think she'd ever do something like this. This route really did her dirty is my point. Although you never know, maybe this was an act of mercy, sparing her from the big emotional climax of this route, and by far my least favorite part of the entire game. I know I said that a few videos ago, but I mean it this time. The funny thing is, it ain't even that bad for the majority of its duration. While playing through this route, astute readers will notice that Kappei might have some kind of health problem, seeing as how his bag has a bunch of pills in it and he clearly lies about them, saying they're just antacids. Another clue is him getting a job as a rehab assistant at a hospital, and there's also the fact that Kappei is a noticeably fast sprinter, at least according to Tomoya.
Wow, he's fast!
And finally, one day Sunohara notices something bone-chilling in a newspaper article and hands it over to Tomoya. It tells the story of the tragic high school sprinter, a prodigy who collapsed just before the end of an important race due to leg pain that he hid from everyone he knew. The picture confirms that this was in fact Kappei, and just before Tomoya fully explains what happened, Ryo gets brought into the room by Masai. She starts crying in his chest, building up the suspense, and then Tomoya finally reveals Kappei's condition, osteosarcoma. What the fuck? Oh, cancer. It's prefaced to us as something that needs to be treated very early on, and in order to treat it when it's in your legs, they need to be amputated. Kappei doesn't want to do that, as he explains to Tomoya in the hospital. See, he's an orphan who's never felt like life was worth living. But one day, a musician showed up at the orphanage as part of some TV program to talk to the kids there. He told Kappei to find one thing in his life to believe in and push forward. He chose running. The praise and recognition he got for his talents made him feel alive, but after he was diagnosed and took his tumble during the finals, he resigned himself to his fate and decided to wander the country popping painkillers, attempting to enjoy what time he has left with his legs intact. After hearing the story, you can poke a lot of holes into his irrational thought process, but I suppose it isn't too hard to see where he's coming from. Credit where credit is due, too. Tomoya brings up every single point that I would have made to try to convince him to do the surgery, and then we see Kappei struggle to weasel his way back into being stubborn. Why can't you just live for Ryo's sake now that you have her? Because I'd be a burden. Well, why did you even date her in the first place? Oh, I just kinda do whatever I feel like in the moment. Alright, scumbag, well, I want you to live. Running can't be everything to you. I mean, I got to know you after all this stuff happened. Yeah, no, sorry, I'm still gonna die.
Mom says to stop trying to give yourself cancer.
Just gonna get a little bit of cancer, Stan. Tell Mom it's okay.
This is frustrating, and I think it's supposed to be. Like talking to a brick wall that's going to get torn down unless you can convince it to move, and also for whatever reason you're friends with it. Tomoya puts it well when he says a kid who knows nothing just explained what it means to live. I still don't care about Kappei at all, but I can empathize with somebody trying to help a friend whose conviction is equal only to their delusion. Yusuke then shows up and hears Tomoya and Ryo out, then reminds us that we are in fact playing Clannad by tying us back into this game's main theme. He bitterly mentions that what the musician said to Kappei was irresponsible, hinting that maybe someday we'll hear the other side of this story. Then he bluntly explains that people can stand up and walk forward because of other people. It's something we already tried to convince him of. However, this conversation gives Ryo the conviction, the courage, and the determination to march right up to Kappei, put her foot down, and say, "I'm pregnant." What? Kappei is confused, because unless it's not his, that's impossible. And instead of quitting while she's miles behind, Ryo doubles down. While you were sleeping, shut the hell up. But then, of course, things turn serious. Ryo spills her whole plan to get married and start a family with him. Dreams that will never be fulfilled if he doesn't go through the surgery. Tomoya chimes in beautifully, saying that he never had a mother. His dad always looked so pained whenever he asked him about her, and he imagines that Ryo will look the same way if Kappei keeps being stubborn about this. This eventually convinces him, and he gains the balls to lose his legs and keep living for the people who love him. All's well that ends well. Like, I've had my nitpicks, way more than any other route in the game, but hey, at least things ended on a... wait, what's this? After a little time passes, we learn that Kappei is being transferred to another hospital, because there's this technique called quick freezing that will complete the surgery while allowing him to keep his legs. That's... I don't think contrived even begins to describe this. Kappei hasn't done the surgery yet, so very little time has passed since we last saw him. Ryo never says that this is a new surgery technique, just that it's not that well known yet. So you're telling me that this surgery has existed for some time, and yet Kappei never thought to do a second of research to discover something that completely solves the dilemma that he has resigned himself to death over. And you two, especially you. Why the hell didn't either of you think to look into alternatives? Isn't that like the first thing people do when they try to help each other out with a big problem? Also, you've been in the hospital for weeks. There were doctors talking to you. There is no way in hell that none of them knew about it, and yet they never told you after hearing your story. What kind of hospital? Do they want you to die? Also, now that I think about it, you were a rehab assistant. You shouldn't have even needed to hear this from the doctors. Oh my god. No longer is this a semi-touching story about a guy I don't care for but can still empathize with, gaining the resolve to push forward despite losing his dream. Now it's the story of some writer trying to solicit cheap tears out of me before pulling the rug out from under me and saying that none of it mattered. There was no build up to this. If anything, it goes against Clannad's themes of learning to live on despite the hardships life brings, and I think it makes everything about this route feel so cheap and hollow. I would have been fine with calling this route at most good if Kappei just lost his legs and still pushed forward, but now I can't do more than say it's average. Like, yes, you can still have a good time with this route. It's got funny moments, it can pull on your heartstrings at times, but it's the combination of everything I've talked about in this video that holds it so far back from greatness for me. Its mistreatment of Kyou, its stale and mean-spirited Sunohara jokes, Kappei's unlikability, the fast pace that makes it hard to get invested, the way this relationship feels so forced, and finally the god-awful ending that destroyed any goodwill the climax had built up to that point. Call it harsh, but dude, this is Clannad. The story that's left me crying my eyes out more than any other. The story that inspires me to embrace change and always strive to be the best me I can be. The story that gives me hope that no matter what life throws at me, I'll be okay. Through all my triumphs and failures, I don't think there will ever come a day where it doesn't stand among my friends, my family, my hobbies, and my dreams as the guiding light between them. Average isn't good enough for you, and it never will be. Now, we have one little detour to make before we reach our final stop in this journey, and I can't wait to show you just how perfect this story can be in spite of all its blemishes. Special thanks to Lucy, Mr. Chocolate Salmon, Silent Secondary, and volume warning, as well as bad audio quality warning because, you know, funny story, I had to record this in a car so that my roommates would not hate me. Date skip! And the rest of my wonderful patrons.